ICE now just ramp it up. They've been doing so continually. This comes amidst new polling, which we'll talk about with Kyle Kalinske, that shows American support, not just for what they're seeing, but their support for immigrants has gone up. Their support for what they're seeing from ICE has gone down.
Trump's approval rating on immigration is really low right now. Not that the Democrats, you would hear that from the Democrats, but it's exceptionally low.
And we'll talk to Kyle about this, but it just simply proves the point that none of this stuff is static, right, and that it actually makes a difference what the political parties articulate. But it is because people are starting to see that, and there's a big story in the Atlantic Monthly about the morale at ICE, not all ICE officers, but definitely some at ICE are starting to feel a little bummed that all they're doing is picking up grandma and cuffing her, and B, when they do, Stephen Miller is waiting back at the office going, why aren't there two grandmas here? But here is some footage that's came out of California yesterday. This is in Camarillo, California. Which one of these should we start with?
This is one here.
Yeah, okay. This is disturbing. For people watching on podcasts, they're turn it down slightly, I think. They're tear gassing the workers here, terrorizing them. Too. Children, yes.
They took your mom?
Unbelievable. Here is an aerial shot of that same incident.
Of that is that there are questions of how humanely this is being handled. Whether these people who are maybe here illegally, but whether they're being offered or can be pointed in the direction of a path to citizenship. There certainly is that criticism. But you also have Republicans at the same time accusing Democrats and those on the left of amplifying this rhetoric against federal agents and ICE agents. So we're seeing this finger pointing.
Julia, we may have to step away really quickly here. The situation at the farm has escalated. It looks like a lot of tear gas.
Pause it for a second. Hold on. Why would this news lady say those things about these federal workers? Why would she say these mean things about ICE? Escalation. This is dangerous for those federal. There could be a mom down there who might take a cannabis plant and smack one of those military-clad federal officers with a cannabis plant.
The rhetoric.
Can you maybe...
They're rolling through communities with tear gas canisters. We're talking about the rhetoric?
Yeah, what's most important are the ICE Gestapo's feelings. I feel the same way as when I read those articles about the low morale in the IDF. Like, my heart bleeds for you as you rip apart families and ruin lives.
Yeah, what do you think you were getting into?
Really quickly here, the situation at the farm has escalated. It looks like a lot of tear gas and whatever this green smoke is as well. And
probably know
a protester threw something toward the ICE officers there, but a lot of cars turning around and exiting. So it looks like something happened that forced that crowd to turn and run. Rich, are you still?
Yeah, so as we're listening to radio chatter down here, the fire department actually had to leave this zone and head back to where they have set up a command center for treatment for the civilians. And they said that they needed to leave the area because the crowd was starting to get a little more hostile. So for the safety of the fire department, they have left this zone here on Laguna Road. And then shortly after that is when we started seeing the tear gas and the flashbangs and the pepper balls being fired back towards the crowd. But the crowd was also picking up items, rocks, whatever I guess they can find on the ground, and starting to throw them back towards federal agents, which is just going to create an even more volatile situation here between agents and the community members. And they at some point are just going to continue to push this crowd further and further away from.
God, unbelievable. Here's Tom Homan on Fox and Friends this morning, trying to defend his work. And as far as I can tell, I'm no criminal defense attorney, but I suspect that his definition of reasonable suspicion is a little bit thin.
I've got to get your reaction to this Biden-appointed federal judge out in Los Angeles, apparently expected today to issue a temporary restraining order halting your lawful operations. She says, I think it's important for the court not to burden otherwise lawful law enforcement activities. Your reaction there?
Look, people need to understand, ICE officers and Border Patrol, they don't need probable cause to walk up to somebody, briefly detain them, and question them. They just need the totality of the circumstances, right? They just got through the observation, get articulable facts based on the location, the occupation, their
Pause it for a
appearance.
second. I mean, first off,
Jesus.
This guy mumbles here is saying that you don't need probable cause to stop and detain people. And the fact is you need reasonable suspicion. It can't just be, we want to do it. And he's trying to argue that they have reasonable suspicion. But go back a little bit. So, it's hard to sort of make out what he's saying because
I know.
Let's get subtitles. The AI overheated.
He sounds like in My Fair Lady where she has all those mumbles in her mouth trying to enunciate, but that's just his, and this is a very timely reference by me anyway.
But he starts to go on like that, the way they look. Now, you can, if you see somebody pacing in front of a bank, right? And maybe looking to a car that is idling in front of the bank and looking inside and looking around furtively, that becomes a basis of reasonable suspicion. But that's a function of looking at the person and assessing their behavior in some way. What this guy is starting to sort of list off here ends up being things like status. And so if you're a brown person who is working a weed whacker, that is not reasonable suspicion that you're an immigrant if you would not approach a white person using a weed whacker.
I'm not trying to do a spoiler alert thing here, but he literally says how they look in 15 seconds. Yeah.
People need to understand, ICE officers and Border Patrol, they don't need probable cause to walk up to somebody, briefly detain them, and question them. They just need the totality of the circumstances, right? They just got through the observation, get articulable facts based on the location, the occupation, their physical appearance, their actions. Like a uniformed Border Patrol agent walks up to them at for instance,
all right, pause it for 1 second. There you had it. Their occupation and their physical appearance.
Yep.
And the accent.
I mean,
that's just racial profiling.
It is racial profiling. And first off, let's be clear. Like, there are a lot of immigrants who are here overstaying their visas. There are Europeans. There are, someone like Elon Musk at one time was in this country, and there's reason to believe without proper documentation. What occupation did he have that would have been reasonable suspicion to detain him? This is racial profiling. And then they go on to say, and if we approach them and they run away, you get thugs coming out in unmarked cars, masked. I got news for you. If you're a white person, you might have reason to run. If you are a person of color and masked thugs come out of a car and start to attack you without identification, without license plates, did we see what was marching in Lexington? Was it in Louisville or Lexington, Kentucky on July 5th?
Louisville.
Yeah. Marching down the street to Louisville, masked thugs. Running away from an unmarked, unidentified, masked thug is not indicative that you may be anything other than a reasonable person worried about what's going on.
A security guy assassinated 2 lawmakers in Minnesota dressed up as a cop.
And he says briefly detain. That footage that we just saw there, are they briefly detaining them or are they terrorizing? And that boy was saying they took my mom and tear gassing them. That's not what they're doing. They're not briefly detaining them. They're brutalizing them.
All right, good.
get articulable facts based on their location, their occupation, their physical appearance, their actions. Like a uniformed border patrolman walks up to them at, for instance, a Home Depot, and they got all these articulable facts, plus the person walks away or runs away. Agents are trained. What they need to detain somebody temporarily and question them. It's not probable cause, it's reasonable suspicion. We're trained on that. Every agent, every 6 months, get Fourth Amendment training over and over again. These officers are really good at what they do. And if this judge makes a decision that's against what these officers are trained, what the law is based upon, then they're going to shut down operation. I think that's their end game. They want ICE to stop doing this, but if they base it on the rule of law, they're going to find out Border Patrol and ICE is doing exactly what they're going to do in accordance with law.
And you're not going to stop coming. Tom Homan, thank you for getting up.
Oh, great. He's not going to stop coming.
And here's the one of the key facts about this is that there is very little opportunity for people to file charges or to push back against those instances where they don't follow the rule of law. I mean, that is the point. They are acting and functioning outside of a normal judiciary system. Yeah. And the opportunities here for there to be any type of like legal processes to push back on this are extremely limited.
Well, I mean, they have now basically, within a 6-month period, formalized racial profiling as federal policing policy, essentially. And we saw this, like we were talking about this at the beginning of the administration, how they were using gang databases and gang ties to basically call people criminals. Not that they're even bothering with that at this point. That seems quaint. But what they were building off of was decades of broken windows policing and what like black and brown communities in this country, stop and frisk, have been experiencing their whole lives in many ways, but they've federalized it here. Yep. This is stop and frisk on the national level, and worse than that, it's throwing folks into these detention centers. And Tom Homan, we get it. You're probably going to get rich from the private prison industry here, but there's a lot of folks that are quietly, I think, connected to this mass incarceration policy and are getting rich off of it right now. And
there's reports about Stephen Miller having investments in these things.
And Palantir especially. I mean, and just to highlight one incident, Andrea Jose Hernandez Romero, the hairdresser, still at CCOP.
In a torture chamber. And we know now from Kilmar Abrigo Garcia's account through his lawyer that they tortured them. And we saw in Alligator Alcatraz, that Florida concentration camp down there, they're borrowing from them. The accounts from the people who are being housed there, there was a local report that we played from CBS Miami yesterday where they called and said that they're keeping the lights on all night. They're taking the tactics from the torture chamber in CCOT and doing it on U.S. soil.
All right. In a moment, we're going to talk to Kyle Kulinski about this and more. Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.